Thanks for tuning in. My name's Andre Servin, and you're listening to Off the Roost podcast, brought to you by Off the Roost Custom Calls, turkey calls for the serious hunter. Join me and my co-host, Paul Murdahl, as we delve into the world of the wild turkey, covering everything from calling tips and tactics and hunting strategies to the latest equipment available, featuring interviews from special guests and custom call giveaways. We'll do our best to keep you up to date on this obsession we call turkey hunting. We appreciate you joining us. Now let's get on with the show. Hey, how's it going? Thanks for tuning into our podcast. We are Off the Roost Podcast, and we're also, well, not all of us. I am Off the Roost Calls, and my buddy Paul, he has his own little call thing. So, Paul, what is your name?
Paul Murdahl, and yeah, like you said, I've been kind of dabbling into making box calls here for, I guess, the last year.
Yep. But, and that's Cooley Custom Calls?
Well, I don't know if I have a name specific for it, but I do have an Instagram account where I have Cooley Custom Calls, you know, kind of, if I do end up selling calls in the future, I think that's probably what the name is going to be.
Yeah. And yeah, since Paul brought it up, I am Off the Roost Calls on Instagram. So we are a new podcast.
I think I messed it. It's Cooley Creek Custom Calls.
Oh, that's right. It is Cooley Creek Custom Calls. Right. That was my mistake. So yeah, like I was saying, we are a new podcast, a new turkey hunting podcast. And this podcast birthed because Paul used to come over to my house and we used to just drink beer and talk about turkeys till 2 a.m. And then one day Paul said, well, why don't we just record all these conversations? Because,
right.
you know,
you'd also text me quite a bit with all your problems you were having chasing gobblers in Iowa and wherever.
Correct.
We'd hash it back and forth, and we'd get into a lot of stuff where I thought maybe we should be recording it because we went through a lot of good stuff. Yeah,
for sure. And, you know, that's a little bit of kind of one of the things we got going on here with this podcast is I'm a newer guy, and he's a turkey veteran. He's been hunting turkeys for a very long time. What would you say, Paul? Early 90s? Late 80s?
Yeah, somewhere. I would venture to guess it was somewhere around 91, maybe 92.
And, yeah, I did. I used to bug Paul a lot and ask him all sorts of tactical questions and head scratchers for me when the turkeys would make me feel like a fool. I met Paul, we kind of met each other on the old Gobbler forum, and then we kind of found out that we both lived in Minnesota. So we eventually kind of linked up together.
I think what it was I had read a post of yours where you were worried about the cold temperatures, maybe it was?
No, that was one of them, because opening morning was going to drop to like 12 degrees, and I didn't know if it was a good idea to sleep in my truck.
Right, and I'm pretty sure I recognized the area you were hunting, and I sent you a private message, you know, stating where the area was, and said if you needed any help, that I'd hunted down there quite a bit.
Yep.
And I'd be able to help you out however I could, and I think that's how we really got started.
Yep, it is, because you definitely helped me out there, and then I try to not bug you, even though the turkeys were driving me crazy in Wisconsin.
See, what you didn't realize is I was jonesing to talk turkey with somebody, because I don't really know very many turkey hunters. You know, I got my brother and my dad, they do it a little bit, but they're not into it. My brother, I don't think he's turkey hunted in the last 3 years. You know, he did quite a bit when we were younger. And then my dad's turkey hunted pretty much throughout, but now it's, you know, he generally goes with me. We spent most of his turkey hunting career where I would be leading him around and calling for him, and
Yeah.
he was the trigger man.
Yep. So Paul, you know, you're talking about hunting with your dad. So I know I'm originally from California, and I've only lived in Minnesota for, I don't know, maybe 6 and 7 years, but you're born and raised Minnesota, right?
Yes.
So you've been hunting the Minnesota woods for a long time.
Right. Since I was probably, well, I mean, when I was super young, it would be my dad probably, not probably, but he bought us a pellet gun and sent us out. You know, we lived in a pretty open suburbs just out of the Twin Cities metro area in Minneapolis, in St. Paul, or in Minnesota, and we just go out and we'd harass the squirrels and the rabbits and whatnot. And
oh yeah.
And then, you know, in the fall, it would be once a week. We'd have the wild game dinner, and we'd eat the rabbits and the squirrels and whatever else we were able to harass and bag in the, you know, just outside the backyard.
Yeah.
So it was since, you know, and I would imagine I was 8, 9, maybe 10 years old when that started happening, and then it progressed there from I got my gun safety. And then I was able to go duck hunting and deer hunting, and that was 13 you were allowed, I believe, back then, allowed to legally hunt by yourself with gun certificate. So the duck hunting was, you know, a group thing, but the deer hunting, they said, all right, you know, here's your tree stand, go sit in your tree. There was no 8 years old or 5 years old where you're sitting in dad's lap or whatever. It was threw you right in the fire and said, you're on your own, kiddo.
Yeah.
Here's a whistle.
That's great.
Here's a whistle. If you shoot something, or if you hear something or you get in trouble, just start blowing on the whistle and somebody will come help you out.
Yeah. You know,
and it turns out that opening morning I did end up shooting 2 does, and
really,
I started blowing on my whistle, and my dad wasn't nearby, but his friend was nearby, and the story he tells about how he was blowing on the whistle, it was kind of funny. He said, I heard the shots, and then in about 10 minutes, I just heard this dang whistle just blowing and blowing and blowing. And he said, it's not like I was real far away from you. I could hear it. You didn't need to blow the whistle so much.
That's great.
I was a little excited.
Yeah, no. 2 does, man. That's cool.
Right.
You know, I don't know if it's a boy thing or whatever, man, but even over in California, around that same age is when I managed to get my hands on a BB gun, and it was the pump kind, you know. So we try to pump that thing as much as possible so the velocity is stronger, and we were doing the same thing, man, just like shooting birds in the backyard, and we even took that thing to like a park nearby, and we're shooting things there. And I'm surprised. Oh man, I got a crazy story of an incident, but I guess since I brought it up, there's always that one wild friend of the group. And so there was this wild kid, and we were in like a regular suburban neighborhood. He shot a bird off of a street light, but he didn't kill it. Like, it didn't die. It had like a broken wing or something. And I was like, great, man. Now we got to finish that thing off. I was like, I told you not to do that. We're like 13 years old. Some lady she was doing her laundry in her garage, and she had the side door of her garage open because she was going like in and out of the house or whatever. The bird like flopped its way into the garage, and it ended up going behind her like washing machine or something like that. So when she wasn't in there doing the laundry and we'd see her go in the house, we'd run in her garage and we'd try to get the bird, and then we'd run back out and hide again, hoping not to get caught. And then it just got to a point where I was like, dude, we need to just go tell this lady what's going on. And so I had him go and knock on the lady's door. We were all there. She had like, 3 13-year-old boys, 12 and 13-year-old boys outside, telling her that we shot this bird and it flopped into her garage and we need to go and get it. Oh, man. And all the stuff we had to move out of the way to get the bird. There was no way we were going to pull it off prior.
Did you get a lecture from the woman?
No. We try to kind of frame it and be like, yeah, we were just hunting in that park right over there. And then she was like, yeah, I don't think you guys are allowed to do that. And I'm like, no, it's cool. I was like, we were in the park, I remember that. And so we got the bird. And then I told him, I was like, now you got to cook it, man. I'm like, you got the bird. I don't even know what kind of bird it was, but I was like, oh, you got to eat it. And he ended up he took one bite out of this thing after we kind of cooked it. We didn't know what we were doing. And he spit it out. And I was like, oh, well, I mean, I guess you took a bite out of it. But that's my...
Was it cooked first, at least?
Nah, dude. It was not cooked at all.
Huh?
No, I mean, we tried to cook it, but there was no field prep. We pretty much just barbecued threw it on the grill and turned it on. And we're like, okay, that's good enough, right? But that's my 12, 13-year-old crazy BB gun story. And after that, man, that's when it was over. That's when I was like, we're done, dude. We're freaking done with this. That was crazy. Don't let so and so get the BB gun again.
So when did you finally start working into actual hunting?
That wasn't until I moved out here, man. It was always something that I wanted to do, and it wasn't the most accessible thing over in California. I did have a friend whose dad was a Western big game guy, but he was pretty hardcore into it, and I don't know, I guess just when I asked him to kind of show me the ropes, it was a little bit of 0 to 100, with him. And it was just a little bit too intense for me because he'd be gone for weeks at a time. And at this point in time in my life, that was just not a feasible option. It's still, even for me now, I can't take off somewhere for 2 weeks. I have too many responsibilities for that. So that kind of sat to the side, and then I moved out here, and where, in the Midwest, it's a lot more accessible, and it's, I would say deer hunting's pretty cultural out here. So yeah, I moved out here and started seeing turkeys in the neighborhood. And
at the time you moved out, had you already met your wife, or did you meet her out here?
No, man. At this point, I think we were married for about 5 years.
So you drug her with you. What was the decision that made you come to Minnesota?
Cost of living, man. At first.
Cost of living?
At first, it was cost of living. I actually really like Minnesota. If I could move anywhere in the country, I'd still live here.
So you're one of the original California refugees then?
I guess so.
Oh, from all the guys that are fleeing out because of the high taxes and the crime rate and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I guess if you think about it, I guess I kind of did it right before it started getting, like you were saying, that this mass exodus from the place, A lot of them were going to Texas, and I kicked around the idea of Texas too, but...
Well, I think the big three now are Texas, Tennessee, and Florida, I think.
For transplants.
Right, for California transplants.
Yeah. I don't think the upper Midwest in particular is a California transplant location, which is perfectly fine with me.
It's too cold for them in the winter.
Too cold, and then, yeah, I mean, cold is definitely one of it. I don't know if maybe they feel it's a little too bland for them,
That and possibly, the taxes they're trying to escape in California are still going to affect them here.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that here for sure. Yeah, man. So I started seeing gobblers in the neighborhood, turkeys, and I lost
And this
it.
would have been, what time frame would have this been about, 2010, 2005? What date
Oh
were you
no,
looking at?
no, oh no. When I moved to Minnesota, it was like 2018.
2018, so not too long ago then.
Mm-hmm. And yes, I came to visit my in-laws for Christmas, and I saw a family flock just walking down the street in their neighborhood, and yeah, man, I was just through the roof with it. And yeah, immediately I just started looking into like how to hunt these birds, how to hunt turkeys. And I made that decision I decided, I didn't tell anybody, but mentally I was like, we're going to move out here. And then once I came out here, even before I came out here, I was already kind of looking into like how to get into turkey hunting and deer hunting. And luckily for me, I wanted to get into it, and I figured I was going to need some books on how to hunt turkeys. So the first thing that I looked up was good turkey books, and the first one I bought was 10th Legion, and then the second one was One Man Game, which is really interesting. Of all the turkey books and stuff that you could get, that I ended up getting those two books. And that's what I read. I remember being on the plane coming out here to Minnesota. I had these books that I was reading, So that's kind of my introduction, man. And then I started bugging some people to take me. And then that's when I learned that you just have to go out there and do it yourself, man.
Right. Yeah, I mean, a little different for you, because everything that you're getting involved is self-initiated, where, it was more of a family thing for me. My dad hunted, his dad hunted, and, so it just was kind of a progression. They just, was almost a given that,
Yeah.
We got three boys in our family, me and my two brothers, and it was just kind of a given, and we just started hunting. It's just how we did it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it'll be the same thing, for my boy. I've actually, I taught him, if you ask him, what does a turkey say? He goes, gobble, 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 gobble. I already got him messing around with calls too, man. I'm going to enter him in the Poltz division.
How old is he?
Oh, he's 17 months right now.
Yeah, I was going to say he's a year and a half now.
Yep. And I got him a little toy turkey. He's got a little toy turkey, and he plays with it. Right now, he's kind of into his monster trucks, but the turkey's, it lingers around the vicinity.
It goes for a ride every once in a while. It
does. Huh? Goes for a ride.
Unlike with Dad.
Yeah. For sure. Maybe one or two a year, though.
Maybe. All right. We'll give you that.
Yeah. So, yeah, Paul, why don't you, I guess, let's talk about how do you like to hunt turkeys? Because I guess we both, I personally think that there's more similarities than maybe we're aware of. But how do you go about hunting turkeys?
Sure. I mean, it's been a progression for me, I guess would be, I started back in the early 90s, and back then it was, try to learn as much as you can about the turkeys we're hunting, because, there really wasn't a lot of information out there that you could get your hands on. They had the turkey hunting magazine or whatever that came out every other month, and
turkey and turkey hunting.
And that was basically all I had to go by. The internet it's still in its infancy. You really couldn't get a whole lot of information, off the internet. You could get your basic, we got a turkey season here in Georgia and the regulations and stuff like that. But as far as getting your online mapping and, where you could go hunt and stuff, that was pretty limited. You actually had to go to these areas and hunt them. So we got started in Minnesota. We had put in for a group drawing to start out with, and it was me, my dad, and my brother. And I was fired up. It was kind of something, the turkeys were getting pretty good in Minnesota as far as the population. I knew people were hunting them, and my dad had hunted them once with the group that he had put in from work.
Yeah.
And I was out, the season came in back then probably about the same time. So I was out in end of February, March, and their intention was to hunt this public ground. But I had tied up all the permission for the private ground around it, thinking that, it's going to be great on this private property. These turkeys will get chased off the public property and they'll be sitting out on the private. And then come to find, that the public property was just as good, or if not even better, than the private property around the perimeter. So it was kind of eye-opening, that all the game could actually, and there was quite a few turkeys around at that time. In the first hunt, I believe it was my brother, I know for a fact, the first morning of his first hunt, 30 minutes into it maybe, probably before the sun came up even, he ended up shooting what the guy at the check station had thought was possibly a world record turkey.
Wow.
And it was like 27 and a half pounds with an 11-inch beard and like 1.75 inch spurs.
Wow.
When he measured up to give the information to the state. And it was like, you guys should check into that and actually find out what this ranks with the NWTF, because he knew it was pretty high up there, if not one of the highest at the time.
Yeah.
So, and like I said, the internet was in its infancy at the time. So, I kind of got on the internet a little bit looking for, what possibly could be the world record and whatnot. And there was no information on that. And I think to actually, take your measurements and put the application in cost like $30 or something like that. So we just we blew it off and didn't pay attention to it. And then when I heard here just recently that the world record turkey was just shot here in New Jersey and it was a gobbler about the same size, I was like, oh, really? And we've still got the fan and the beard and the spurs from the one my brother shot. He had it mounted, and it's got the plate underneath it saying, how much it weighed. And I measured the spurs on it, and I measured the beard on it, and it was right up there as far as scoring, as far as being a world record. So,
and
pretty interesting. And
this is the one you told me your brother, I think, flew down right off the roost, and he shot it opening morning and said, "This is easy." Is this the brother?
Right,
yeah.
Right. He's one of them spoiled guys, and so yeah, it like I said, if he was hunting a little pasture like deal, crop field, I think it was probably pasture at the time, or a hayfield, anyways, and just across it was probably maybe 100 yards across this little narrow section, and the turkeys were roosted in the woods on the other side where there was a river valley, and they were on the edge of the bluffs that folded into the river valley, and it folded down, walked to the edge of the edge of the clearing and came right across,
Yeah.
stomped on his decoy, and when it raised its head up, when it was in the middle of stomping his decoys, my brother shot him.
Yeah.
He didn't really know a heck of a lot about turkeys or turkey calling or anything like that. I think it was maybe just a couple clucks and some purrs. That's all he did, and he was probably, like I said, he was probably back in the truck before the sun came up.
Wow.
And I don't know if my dad had shot one, but I had gone for a good part of that first week. We had a 5-day period without hearing much for turkeys on the private property, and then I think it was my last morning. I got into the same area where my brother had shot his, and I was the same he was. I had no clue really about how turkeys acted, and I just knew the males had a beard and they gobbled.
Yeah,
that's basically about it. And I knew a little bit of turkey calling with the pot call, and I had some diaphragms that are with me, but I wasn't any good on them, and I was probably afraid to use them.
Yeah.
And I was on this little ridge top, and I did some scratching, or not some scratching, but some yelps on the pot call, and lo and behold, the turkey gobbles not less than 100 yards away from me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just standing out in the middle of nowhere, so I just get up next to a tree and start leaning for it, and I look over to where I heard the gobble, and here comes a gobbler pushing, I think probably, 3 hens in front of him. He comes across in front of me and sets up, maybe 35, 40 yards away tops, and steps out from behind his tree in full strut, and I'm peeking around the tree looking at him, and I'm just freaking out.
Yeah.
My heart's racing, and I shot at him. And it wasn't the greatest shot decision in the world. He rolled over backwards and flopped around, and I got up to start running up there, and when I got up there, he was gone. I have no idea where he went. Never found him. Looked for quite a long time, and that was it. And ever since that point, I was hooked. The image of him stepping out from behind that tree.
Oh yeah.
And seeing him in full strut like that, it's seared into my brain at this time. I can see it like it was.
Oh yeah.
Like it was happening right now. And like I said, Minnesota was. You had to put in for a drawing, and you'd maybe get drawn every 3rd year. So when the next spring had come along, and I was eaten up by this last turkey hunt that I had of my first trip, I had to find a place to go. So I think my first trip was down to Arkansas. And then I met some buddies on the way back from Arkansas. I think I stayed in Arkansas for like 3 or 4 days. And then on the way back from Arkansas, I met some buddies in Missouri. And we hunted there for a week. And I actually ended up shooting my first gobbler ever in Missouri that trip on the way back.
Yeah.
And I think it was the following year I went to Georgia to change it up a little bit, and I really liked Georgia quite a bit. And the state park where I stayed, got to be good friends with the ranger and his assistant there, and they're big turkey hunters, and I ended up going down there every spring and hanging out for, generally about 2 weeks. And
I know
that would maybe.
Yeah, I know you've mentioned to me that that ranger actually kind of helped you out kind of quite a bit, right?
Yeah, I'm sure, that first year or two, I probably got on his nerves a little bit, because whenever I found him while he's working in the park somewhere, I was always up bugging him, asking him questions about this and that and here and there. And I'm sure I was kind of annoying, but he like I said, he loved to talk turkey, so it was actually pretty easy talking to him.
And you were you were in your early 20s?
Yeah, I would probably been about 21, 22, and he was probably, I think, probably in his mid to late 30s at the time, maybe 10, 15 years ahead of me.
Yeah. And, I think two, also what kind of helps out, at least with him too, is that they were hunting turkeys in Georgia a whole lot longer than they were hunting turkeys in Minnesota. So it's kind of hard, I would say, to find somebody in Minnesota to kind of show you the ropes. I mean, I'm sure there's somebody there that was a very skilled turkey hunter, but I would say overall the popularity of hunting turkeys just wasn't that big in Minnesota. So
No.
going down south to have somebody there kind of teach you the ropes, I mean, that kind of sounds like not the only way to go, but a good way to go.
Right. And you know, I guess it was, you know, I'd go storm around the woods all day or whatever. And then, you know, when things happened to me and I had questions about whatever, it would be the next time I seen him, I'd be up next to him and bugging him and asking him, you know, why did they do this? Why did they do that? Where do you think they're going to go when it's 90 degrees out?
Oh, yeah.
You know, stuff like that.
Sounds like all the questions I ask you.
Right. So that was pretty neat. And I got acquainted with the guy. You know, I think I probably went down there for, you know, 10 years in a row. And then life things happened where I wasn't able to make it down there for a while.
Yeah.
But then here just recently, I think after like a 20-year hiatus, I ended up going back down there. And it was like, you know, even though when talking to him and corresponding with the guys, the assistant and the ranger, you know, they had logged the areas off a lot that I had hunted and stuff like that. But by the time I got back down there, all these areas were 20 years old again, and it was like I never left. A lot of the spots I hunted, even one of my favorite spots that did end up getting logged, I made it down there, and that was my plan, was to go to that spot and check it out. And I climbed up on that ridge right away in the morning, and it was a little chilly out. Before I got out, it was supposed to be like in the low 40s, and the wind was supposed to be blowing real hard. And I was contemplating putting long johns and stuff on before I went out, and I was like, "Nah, man, and you're from Minnesota. You just come through winter. You can handle it." And I was wrong.
Yeah.
I was wrong. About an hour and a half into my sit-up on the little knob of that ridge, I was probably getting hypothermic.
Wow.
Right. But about that time, I did end up hearing a turkey gobble down in the next creek bed below me, and I tried calling them for a little bit with very little replies or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I decided I either needed to go back to the truck, or I needed to get up and move to warm myself up so I didn't freeze to death there. So I kind of made a swing around and got down into the valley and ended up getting them stirred up. And it would have been, you know, a 20-year hiatus where the first morning back, I ended up bagging a gobbler in the same spot. And
that's cool.
It was pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll dive into a little bit of, we'll talk a little bit about kind of the first turkey I ever got. And this was over in Minnesota. And opening week we had something like 8 inches of snow. Opening day, there was like 8 inches of snow, and it was 12 degrees. It was horrible. So that whole entire week for me, we had just had that snow for about 3 days. And then after that, it was gone. It was, man, I was just doing what everybody does. I was just walking around all over the place, just like yakking away on calls, you know, just yakking. And I'd get birds to gobble. They'd respond. And there were even a few times that I was actually calling them in, but I was just over calling because I didn't know when to be quiet. So I'm just yakking, and they'd come in. They'd come about halfway in. And you know what? Because I was yakking on calls so much, I was actually firing up a lot of birds, man. Like, it was like almost every day I'd get like one or two to just like get super fired up, and I'd just end up blowing it because I just call them the whole way. And then it was the very last day of the season. The morning was amazing. And it was so much. It's still up to this day, man. It was the most gobbling like I've ever heard. There were like birds on every single bench, on every single finger. And they were all gobbling to me. And I just got them all fired up, man. And oh man, I must have had.
I would imagine, if it was like me when I first started out, you were probably, the same type of style. You heard a turkey gobble and you were racing after it.
Yep.
Trying to get as close as you can. And he wasn't interested, you bumped him or messed something up or something like that. And then it was, there's another turkey gobbling over there. Let's go after that one.
Yep. Oh, yep. Yeah.
That's how I was when I first started.
And then, so the morning was just this gobbling filled morning, and I maybe called in like 3 gobblers, but I'd screw it up, because I would just continue to overcall. But they would close the distance. They'd be at like 100 yards out, and they'd come in. One came in to about 40 yards. I never actually saw him, but from the last gobble he did, it was about 40 yards. But there was a little bit kind of more tucked away little parcel on this little section of this piece of public, and it was like 5 o'clock or something like that. And we could hunt all day in Minnesota, so I was like, well, I'm just gonna go work this whole ridge system and we'll just see what happens. It's the last day. And I get there, I go up to the very first ridge point, I do a little call sequence, bird hammers it. This was a kamikaze 2-year-old. Not only was this a kamikaze 2-year-old, this was a kamikaze 2-year-old blessing from God, because he's just like, you know what, man, just give this kid a bird, man. Just let him have it, I screwed this one up so bad. And this bird was basically, like I said, it was a gift bird. So he's across this valley on a point. I cross the valley, making all sorts of noise. I get there. He moves away. I don't know if he saw me. He moves away. Goes quiet. I cross the valley again, right back to the ridge point I was on, and I start calling on that ridge point again. He fires back up almost right away. And then next thing you know, I'm hearing him gobbling like on a little shelf on that same, the ridge I was on. And again, I'm just yapping, and he's gobbling. And then I was unaware of this, but I was actually where I was sitting. I was on the very, very top, but there was a little, how do you say it? Like a indentation or whatever in the landscape. And I was inside of that. And there was, at one point in time, the bird, I think, just couldn't take it anymore. And he actually fully crested the ridge because I heard him right on the top gobbling. And I was like, oh, great. He's going to come in. And then he didn't. He like exposed himself and gobbled. And I think he hung out for a few seconds and then went right back over. And then he went quiet for like 20 minutes. And I don't know, I maybe called to him for like 45 minutes or something, man. And then I was quiet for that last 20 minutes too, but I was only quiet because I thought he was just gone. I was like, man, he's just gone.
Yeah.
So I decided to head for the truck. But before I headed for the truck, I said, I just want to see where this bird was at. So I get the gun ready because by this point, from all my shenanigans, I've learned if you're going to crest a ridge or vice versa, just be ready, because you just never know what you're going to see on the other side of this. So I got my gun ready. I think even the safety's off, and I'm slowly walking tree to tree as I'm approaching the crest of the ridge to be able to peek over. And then just right below the crest is the gobbler, and he's just standing there on a log. And he sees me, I see him. I'm like, man, I'm going to try to get this bird. And I like start to raise the gun. And then as I'm raising the gun, the bird's kind of like, I'm out of here. He takes one step forward, and that was all it took, man. And that bird, after the shot, just like stumbled and fell all the way down to the valley. So here I am going all the way down the valley again. And for those who haven't hunted this part of Minnesota, the elevation changes from the top to the bottom could be anywhere from like 300 to 400. This one was in the 300, which is about average. Would you say that's about average?
Yeah, but it's almost straight down when you go over the side.
Yep. So this is my third time going all the way down to the bottom, and then fourth, right, climbing back up, but so I go down, I'm like on cloud 9, and I still actually have a photo and video of this bird, but I get my bird and I climb back out, and then by the time I get to the truck, I look, and there was just like 30 minutes of legal light left. And that's the story of my first bird, man.
Pretty sweet.
Yep.
It made you earn it, though, having to go down after him again.
Oh, yeah. So that's a little bit about us. That's a little bit of some funny stories and stuff. But, we hope that you guys tune into the rest of the stuff that we got going on. We got a lot of great guests coming up.
Yep.
So with that said, thanks for listening to Off the Roost.